Tepper. That's Greg Powers. And this is This Week
in Recruiting.
It's This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers and Next Level Athletes, presented by our friends at Chicken Express. Love that chicken. Powers, how you doing, buddy?
Great. How are you guys? Been busy talking about high school football in the last 24 hours? Question mark.
It's been a couple of hours. It's been a minute here that we've been flying by the seat of our pants. You know, first, that's kind of the first topic I want to broach with you. Is you have a piece up on TexasFootball.com about the recruiting impact of the UIL's announcement yesterday that they are moving 6A and 5A later while keeping 4A and below the same. Can you kind of give us the gist of how you see the UIL's decision yesterday impacting the recruiting world?
I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on the recruiting world as it relates to some of the top D1 prospects in the state of Texas, but it could certainly have some long-lasting effects for some of the smaller type of schools who are evaluating these guys. I think the biggest thing is that if this current NCAA calendar stays in effect the way it is, that 6A and 5A players will have 3 fewer weeks that coaches will be out at their games to evaluate them in person. Just another setback for the colleges this year who have had constant setbacks and have not been able to get out on their road to evaluate prospects. And here's a note for the prospects who might be listening to this is make sure that you are ready physically to go out and perform that first few weeks of the season, because the game tape is more important than it ever has been before. And those first 3 games are going to be very important to your recruiting process, whether you're a 2021 prospect who's looking to add some more offers or trying to climb up the list for some colleges, or you're an underclassman that's trying to get on a college's radar. Those first few weeks are going to be pretty important for your recruitment.
Let's start with our normal nonsense here, where we talk the biggest news and notes from across the Lone Star State in the world of recruiting. Let's start with our prospect on the rise. Our prospect on the rise, we're going down to the Golden Triangle, West Orange Stark. And normally when we talk West Orange Stark, we talk defense. We're talking offense today. Offensive lineman Demetrius Hunter is picking up some steam on offers. Picked up 3 big offers, including Colorado, SMU, and Texas A&M, joining Oklahoma and Arizona State. This is a guy who was just a sophomore last year, an all-district sophomore last year. This is a guy that we could have easily slotted into underclassmen of the week, but this is a guy that certainly is starting to catch the attention of recruiters across the nation.
Yeah, it was a pretty nice week with 3 big offers coming in, 2 from in-state to join Oklahoma and Arizona State. What I like about Hunter is that he's a very athletic specimen up front, and he's another one of these guys who's a true center. That class of 2022 is starting to stack up with some nice center prospects, as Johnny Dixon from Corpus Christi Flower Bluff has also been picking up some recruiting steam as well. Another guy who's a true center. But what I really like about Hunter is he's so quick off the football. He has great athleticism and reach. He's able to get clear lanes up front, and you see him here making a huge pancake. And that ability to get that first step and get the thing moving, that's what's so important about him. And true centers aren't easy to find, and he's one that can certainly do that. So that's why you see colleges starting to pick up their attention with him.
It's a guy certainly to keep an eye on down there in the Golden Triangle, a big offensive lineman, 6'3", 290. Love his frame already. Going to be entering his junior year here in 2020. Let's get to our commit of the week. This was probably the biggest news of the week last week in recruiting, and that is the number 1 overall prospect in the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Hot 100 has pulled the trigger. Tommy Brockermeyer, the offensive tackle from Fort Worth All Saints, along with his brother, his twin brother, who is one of the very best, if not the best center in the class of the 2021 rankings. They have both committed to Alabama. The Crimson Tide, you know, they picked them over Texas, which I think is the big upset here because that's a Brockermeyer legacy there. But boy, you feel good for Alabama finally getting a recruiting win. That's good for them.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama's done a pretty good job recruiting the Lone Star State in recent years. They have a knack for being able to secure some of the top talents in the country. I think that you really kind of spoke on what the big story is with this, is that both Tommy and James Brockermeyer, who are a Longhorn legacy, I mean, it's a long-lasting legacy. You know, their father was an All-American at Texas before going on to play in the NFL. Their grandfather played at Texas. Their mom went to Texas. They have a brother on the roster at Texas right now who's on scholarship. So this was a setback for UT just because of the connections. You know, it's hard to replace number one offensive tackle, not only in the state, but some consider him as the number one offensive tackle prospect in the entire nation, who is a legacy recruit that's sitting right within your borders. So that's a setback for them. That's going to be hard for them to replace, but they've already started to go out and evaluate other offensive tackles. In the class of 2022, they extended an offer to Dickinson's offensive tackle, Patrick P.J. Williams. So they're out there trying to find a replacement for Tommy Brockermeyer on that list. So they do have a commitment from big offensive tackle Hayden Connor from Katy Taylor right now in the 2021 class. But, you know, they're going to be out there evaluating guys, and this is a chance for other players in the state of Texas who are hungry to be a Longhorn to lay it down on tape those first few weeks of the season and possibly earn an offer.
Well, and one thing that
as
I think
far
is
as
really
Alabama's
important. Go ahead.
As far as Alabama's concerned, you know, this is a home run for them. You know, they found an offensive center. You're only going to take one of them. They got the number one guy in Texas, and they were able to work their way in to get a duo. I mean, a true star duo from the Lone Star State. And I think those are the exact type of guys Alabama wants on its roster. They're great teammates. They're great leaders. Ashley, as a matter of fact, when she was talking with Coach Aaron Beck at All Saints, got a great quote from him about James being the quarterback of the offensive line last year, as Tommy Brockermeyer was out with a shoulder injury. So he stepped up in a big way for All Saints last year, and now they'll have both of those guys up front blocking for Hampton Fay, a commitment at quarterback to Michigan State. I think All Saints you have to put in the mix for a potential state championship run in 2021 in TAPS.
It's a really interesting situation there with that, because Tommy Brockermeyer is such a great player, obviously the number one prospect in our rankings. I feel like his brother really underrated. I think that James Brockermeyer, I think that, yes, okay, this is taking nothing away from Tommy. Tommy's an unbelievable player, but the fact that they are also that the second best player they're getting, quote unquote, in this package is James Brockermeyer, that's super good. That's a really, really big get there for Alabama. It's Greg Powers, the Next Level Athlete, joining us on This Week in Recruiting here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag TF Today. Let's go to our underclassmen of the week. Our underclassmen of the week, we're going to east of Dallas to Garland. Garland 2022 athlete Jordan Hudson pulled the trigger this week. He is heading to Oklahoma. He had offers from all over, including Texas, Texas A&M, Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Oklahoma State. He's certainly on that. You mentioned he's on that 2022 five-star watch list. This guy is athlete is the right word, because he just kind of does everything really well. Yeah,
and he really jumped out to me in person last year. I think I went to it was the Garland Lakeview Centennial game, and that was a game that was just loaded up as you look back at it with top prospects, you know, because Garland has Jordan Hudson and Chase Biddle. Lakeview Centennial has Kamar Wheaton and Ezra Oyatade and Big Ike on the defensive line. So there were a lot of really talented players in that game. Jordan Hudson was right up there with Kamar Wheaton as being the top prospect on the field that day. And I think you look at him being on the five-star watch list and kind of look at where he's checking in at ratings across maybe some of the other services. I think that he is one of these guys that is truly in the mix to be a top 10 prospect in the state. He's very athletic. He has the size and frame to play either side of the football. I really like him. To be honest, this is a huge get for Oklahoma, because he's one of the top players in the entire country, Jordan Hudson. And he probably doesn't get his just due or the respect he deserves quite yet. There are not a lot of media services who actually cover games in Garland ISD due to some stringent rules for covering games there. So I don't think there's been a lot of people who had a chance to see what he brings in pads. He's certainly made an impact in camps and 7-on-7 settings this offseason. But when you see this guy in pads, you're even more impressed.
is a guy certainly to keep an eye on is Jordan Hudson, the athlete from Garland, 2022, now an Oklahoma commit. Let's wrap it all up with our recruit of the week. Our recruit of the week is going to Mansfield, defensive end David Abiara, a guy we've mentioned here before. He also pulled the trigger this week, and he some small independent program he pulled the trigger to. He's heading to he was committed to Notre Dame, but now they're still hopeful for a flip. That's what you're saying here.
Yeah,
I misread this.
He committed to Notre Dame back in March, but SMU and Oklahoma are the two schools that are really pushing to try to flip him. And I think that he's listening to the pitches from both the Mustangs and the Sooners right now. They're strongly in the game to land a commitment from David Abiara. I just think maybe he wants to stay a little bit closer to home. And, of course, both of those schools do offer him that opportunity. So he's one who we're watching very closely over the next few days, next few weeks, to see if SMU and Oklahoma can get enough traction to go ahead and get him to pull the trigger on a flip. He's a four-star prospect, and he's one of the most coveted defensive players in the entire state. As a matter of fact, he's in the top 25 overall. He's number 22 in the DCTF Hot 100. So you're talking about an elite defensive lineman. And if he does stay in state and SMU is able to secure that flip, I mean, that's a huge feather in the cap for what Coach Dykes is doing there, and his staff there is doing a great job recruiting the state of Texas this year especially. And a four-star commitment on the defensive line would certainly signify that recruiting rise for the Mustangs.
No doubting the measurables either. 6'4", 275. He is a monster off the defensive edge. This would be a huge get for either Oklahoma or SMU if they can pry him away from Notre Dame. He's Greg Powers. He is with Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowersScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at NextLevelD1. Powers, appreciate your time. And I guess we'll talk to you, I don't know, next week. We'll do something. I don't know. I'll text you.
Let's do it again next week, and I'm going to love to pick your brain next week after you wrap up your quarterback interview series about who the best your impressions of talking to these great quarterbacks across the state. I kind of want to talk to you about that next week, so maybe something to look forward to for the fans who are listening to this right now.
That's what we call a vertical tease. Thanks, Powers.
Thanks.